नमस्ते प्रोफेसर महादेवन सर, कैसे हैं आप?
Namaste, I'm fine.
Please show the book that has come out, that authored by you, co-authored.
Yes, so this book is an introduction to Indian knowledge systems, concepts and applications, and published by PHI Learning. And this is a textbook. As you see here, it's a typical international style textbook for students. Although the original idea was to have this book for the engineering students, but by the time I finished writing the book, I think now it can be used by any stream. Liberal arts can use, management, because such is the content. So therefore, although the original intent was that it is for science and engineering institutions, it can be used in arts also.
Higher education.
Generally higher education.
Okay. But you have added one chapter on social sciences also.
Yes, one section is there where we talk about public administration and management. We talk about health, wellness and psychology, which are very important.
Yeah. So what is this Indian knowledge system? If somebody is listening to this term for the first time or don't know what it actually means, so what is it?
Okay, so there are three words here: Indian, knowledge and system. So let's look at all the three. The word Indian essentially means that the source of this knowledge that we are talking about is in Akhanda Bharat. I have to use the word Akhanda Bharat. क्योंकि वो हमारा आज का भारत है, this is just 75 years old.
It's true.
Whereas this knowledge is 7,500 years old. So it is Akhanda Bharat. Because such was our culture. So when you say Indian, it is knowledge which is generated in this undivided continental India that we know of. Then comes the word knowledge. Knowledge, as we all know, is either formal. When I say formal, it can be in the form of with a lipi and documented, written down or oral, whatever it could be. That's one part of the knowledge. The other part of the knowledge is a lot of practices. There are oral traditions. I mean, our country is very rich in oral traditions. In fact, I keep saying that if you travel on the road every 50 kilometers, the taste on your tongue will change. In Tamil Nadu, you may take the same dosa, but the dosa taste will change. That much of rich oral practices, health practices, traditions. So that is the knowledge. And what is that? That is something which was thought about, synthesized, practiced, shared, either orally or whichever ways. So all this forms the knowledge. Then comes the word system. System, as we know, is a way in which this knowledge can be beautifully organized. It's not just all over the place. I will give you one framework. There are many frameworks. There's one framework called Chaturdasha Vidyasthan.
Okay.
So it is a 14-part division. I mean, this framework is more for the knowledge which is 2000 plus years old. So we have Veda and Vedangas, you have the Darshanas, then you have the Itihasas, and they are all nicely put onto either a 14-part classification or a 18-part classification. So when you say system, which means there is a systematic way this knowledge can be actually understood. The moment you say darshans, then our entire philosophical systems are so beautifully organized in, Shad Darshanas. Then you have Jaina and Buddha and, Charvaka Darshana. So it's a very nice way we have sort of classified. So this is one part. There are other classifications. For example, our knowledge has also been in kavyas, it has been in mathematics, in engineering. We have a lot of understanding on astronomy, like that. Architecture, for example. So when I say system, is a methodology by which one can put it in a nice pattern and understand it in a very integrated way. So that's how we can define Indian knowledge system.
So what is Indian in that Indian knowledge system? What is Indian about it? For example, and how different it is from contemporary systems or the current systems, the modernity and the past challenges there. Okay. So there is that contradiction.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what we know of the knowledge. What we know of the knowledge is probably, by and large, what we learn when you say knowledge. Learn in a formal system. Informally, we learn a lot of Indian knowledge system. I am talking about the formal system. What we learn in a formal system today in India is knowledge which has been gathered in the last perhaps 400 years. Newton's law is probably the starting of science in some ways.
Yeah.
Whereas the idea of gravity and its fall are all available in Kannada's, Vaisheshika, or, so many other things. So the current day knowledge is what we have largely been told, which has originated from the Western framework. And for whatever reason, that's what we are all being taught, and that's our knowledge. In contrast to that, if you say Indian knowledge spans to a few thousand years, if not more, maybe 6, 7, 8,000 years. And just to give you an example, you have Pingala's Chandra Shastra, which is dated, everybody agrees that it is dated for 2nd century BC, which is 2,300 years from now, earlier than this. So Pingala, although he wrote a Chandra Shastra, which is all about prosody, what you find very interesting in that is, see, if you have to create a meter in any language, Indian languages, then you have Hraswa and Dirgha, right, in terms of the Ucharana.
True.
So if you replace Hraswa is equal to 1 and Dirgha equal to 0, then you actually find a binary mathematics in fully developed form in Pingala's Chandra Shastra. We don't read it. We read binary mathematics, and I will tell you, till 5 years back, I thought binary mathematics originated 50 years back after the birth of computers. And that's what all engineering students are also told. But binary mathematics is in full form in some ways in Pingala's Chandra Shastra. For example, let us take a 10-digit binary number, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, a strip of 10 numbers. And 2 power 10 different numbers are possible.
True.
512 numbers are possible. So this Pingala has an algorithm. There are several algorithms. One algorithm says, you give me that number, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, some 10-digit number. He will tell in a stack of 512 in which row it is there. Or conversely, if you ask him, please tell me what is that binary strip of number in row number 189, he has an algorithm which will tell you what is that number. So that we don't read. That's an example of an Indian knowledge system when I say. So
we don't even know.
We don't even know. You are right. We don't even know, leave alone reading. Actually, there are many things which we know. For example, in Pingala's Chandra Shastra, he has what is called Meru Prastara. We read it as Pascal's triangle. We read it. But we think it is Pascal who proposed it. That's not the fact. The fact is, it is called Meru Prastara. It's there.
Actually, most people don't even know this.
Yes.
This fact. And this shows that how much ignored IKS is. So, do you think with this book, and I think there are many attempts being made to introduce IKS in mainstream syllabus, higher education, and also at the school level, do you think the situation will change in coming months?
Yeah, it will change. I will tell you the reason for it. I am a professor for 33 years now. So let me tell you. See, if you have to, first of all, there is plenty of Indian knowledge. Let us make it clear. It's not that this book is bringing something which is, non-existent, nothing of that kind. What we need to understand is there is plenty of material of Indian knowledge system, but they are very scholarly. They are available in a format which neither a student can absorb it. There are very scholarly discussions. There is tarka, there is a certain way it is being articulated and so on. So, if you ask it will make a difference, it will make a difference for the simple reason that if you have to offer it as a course, maybe a 3-credit or a 6-credit course, then the knowledge has to be distilled, put it into a certain structure. You have to compartmentalize it in terms of chapters. Yeah. Then you have to create a syllabus. Then it's much easier. See what happens when you read thermodynamics, or if you read something on digital electronics or whatever. That textbook introduces. There are deep concepts that's not introduced in a book, but the book really brings the basics. It shows connecting principles and so on. That is an investment on which somebody will do a PhD on digital electronics later, or in thermodynamics later. In the same way, this book is only doing that. It brought it into a very nice structure, which is very amenable for a university teaching in a very structured way. And therefore, that will seed that understanding and that awareness that we are talking about.
True.
And out of 1,000 people, out of 100 people, some 20, 30 people would actually deep dive into it. That's what happened in thermodynamics. That's what happened in, semiconductor electronics. That will happen in Indian knowledge systems also. So that purpose will be served.
But don't you think that rather than having a separate course, for example, you talked about we have it in science, we have it in social science, in every possible field, literature also, such a vast knowledge of Indian knowledge. So why can't we integrate that into starting from the schools, start introducing in every field?
Absolutely, I think you brought the issue to the table. I must tell you that the NEP, the National Education Policy 2020, which has one of the main things that it talks about is how do you build the rootedness in India and get our students aware and be part of the Indian knowledge. That's a very important brief. And the NCERT is now charged with completely redoing the new curriculum framework. They call it as NCF, they call it, which they do it once in 10-15 years. Now it is being done.
It's been 17 years now.
2004 is when it was done. You are right. This time. So they have now put 25 focus groups to think through how do you bring this. So I am chairing the group on knowledge of India. There is one group called Knowledge of India, which is a focus group, and they call it as a cross-cutting theme for exactly the reason what you said. And therefore, and we are working on it. In fact, one of the things that I'm doing is that meetings that is happening. So what we are doing is exactly what you are saying. That the first position we have taken is Indian knowledge system will not be a separate course.
True, exactly.
That means it has nothing to do with others. That is a mental model it will develop. So from the beginning, from the ACC level, early childhood level up to 12th standard, we are now identified how Indian knowledge system will be a vehicle through which we will see the lens of math and social science and architecture and whatnot.
Exactly, this lens needs to change.
Yes, that is the effort going on.
Yeah.
So it will probably, let's say next year or year after, all these will find in place and all that. But in the meanwhile, you and I have not gone through it. And the current higher education may require 15 years to reach there. These kids have to travel through that. So that's where this is required now. That's point number one. Point number two, I keep saying in my preface or somewhere I have also written that every chapter of this book actually has to become a book or two. That's how it should be taught. It is called Introduction to Indian Knowledge Systems. For example, there's a chapter on mathematics. I see easily there can be 2-3 credit courses which will use the lens of Indian knowledge and teach solving indeterminate equation. Kuttaka method is there. Aryabhatti has some beautiful methods to solve some complex algebra and all that's polynomial equations and so on. So I think that will happen, and that should happen.
When we talk about IKS, Indian Knowledge Systems, there is too much focus on the past. Like we had such great knowledge and we, all the concepts are there, and sometimes we border on the extremes, right? On one side we have people who say, nahi, kuch nahi hai idhar. And the other side, yahan pe to sab kuch hai. Like the recent knowledge of 400 years that we talked about, that is useless, and we had all this 2000 years back. So there is one stream that, so both are talking in extreme, but I think the reality is somehow in the middle, right?
Absolutely. I think it serves no purpose and it is uninformed. Both the views are uninformed views. In fact, I often say, in fact, yesterday also I was mentioning that please don't make efforts to glorify Indian knowledge system, because it doesn't need that helping hand. It is eminently convincing for somebody who dives deep into it. Just show it. Bring it to the table. You don't have to make efforts to say that this is so great. All that is not required. I think there are well thought about ideas paradigms, a certain perspective on which you have to look at issues of life and so on. So that this has everything, I don't think we need to say that. We don't have to waste our time on it, because the problem there is such people stop there. There's a full stop there.
Exactly.
There is no point in simply saying we have everything. And nobody is interested in that statement. You bring that everything and let us look at it in a very objective way. And for all I know, I may be convinced, you need not be convinced. I am not asking you to get convinced. My only sense is it is logically sound, it is appealing. Therefore, a good number of people may actually be very convinced that there is something interesting. The other viewpoint is also of no use. You can't say, all that we have found in the last 300 years is enough, because simple logic tells us evolution, growth and innovation requires an open mind. You can't close your mind, this is required and this is not required. That means that's sometimes it comes to an end. It is like a dead end. So therefore, I think that view is not required, also not required. So I think it is a middle path. Today, genuinely, with all our respect for technology and all that, I think in the last 200, 300 years, we have brought a lot of technology and all that we have done. I don't think we should talk anything less of that. The only thing we should say is, with all that technology and all that we have brought, there are some fundamental problems which we have not been able to solve yet. Right? See, Schopenhauer, who is a German philosopher, in 1852, he wrote a book in German, which was later translated in English, the world as will and representation. So there is one statement there I remember. It says, now that human beings have solved all the problems, they become problem themselves. Something like that he has written. The point is, science and technology helps you to, it can only help you to lead a good life. It doesn't tell you what is the elements of a good life. Whereas a lot of the Indian knowledge system, and not only Indian knowledge system for that matter, a lot of ancient Oriental systems have looked at the intrinsic element of, so therefore to say this is not required, that is enough, that is not required, this is enough, is an uninformed thinking. I think a good progressive thinking says we need everything, let's look at it, and there are interesting things we need to take from all these. I think that's a position we should take. But in order to do that, we have lost the Indian knowledge. Let's first bring it back and then see how to use it.
Yeah, first we have to understand what it is before delving into, whether it is required or not.
Which way we can use it.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Wood steel. Wood steel was manufactured in 600 BC. Onwards, and I am a mechanical engineer, sort of. So because production engineer, I am a 90% mechanical engineer. Our courses were like that. So I always say I am a mechanical and a production engineer actually. So what happens is, the ferrous carbon alloys is the most important thing in metallurgy. How this iron and carbon is mixed is all a function of what kind of interesting material you bring. So it is called ferrous carbon. So there is a nice thing called temperature transformation time diagram. This is most important in metallurgy. Over time, how and at different temperature, how these ferrous alloys, carbon alloys transform. This wood steel, why I am saying all this, a little bit of technical detail, otherwise we don't appreciate this.
Yeah.
This wood steel, the composition of the ferrous and iron and carbon makes a steel actually. It's a carbon alloy. That composition people have still not understood, not able to replicate. Whereas wood steel was manufactured, the Damascus blades, which are used for fighting and all that.
Quite famous.
They are all from wood steel, which were manufactured in a certain portion of Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Let's say in Tamil Nadu, it is called eggu. And in Karnataka, it is called ukku. That became Wootz.
We had actually covered this wood steel particularly with the podcast with Professor V. Ramanathan of IIT BHU.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because his focus area is chemistry and he's trying to find out what all there is. Yeah. No, there are so many examples like that.
Yes.
So at least we have to understand even iron ore iron pillar in Delhi. That is quite famous. We still don't know what made it so.
There is a 11th century text called Rasa Ratna Samuchaya. Right? In that, I think in that text there are 14 classifications of ferrous carbon alloys. So it looks like it's a fairly well understood thing. We have lost it today. We don't even know, as you say, First of all, we don't know such a thing existed. Then comes the question of how did they go about. That's a different story. We are not even in stage 1. So I think that's the reason why we need all these things to come back again, that we can take our own positions on what to do with all this.
How do you think that this will impact the psyche of Indians or the coming generation? Because there is so much deracination that we see in current generation as far as the IKS and the not just ignorance but hubris that there is nothing there. And that impacts your confidence, who you are, your identity, and all that crisis is there. But once people know that we had such an advanced system of knowledge, and then we also take it from other people who have developed it further. So how do you think that will impact the psyche of the...
No, I think it will do a huge, it will make a huge difference to the youngsters, because there is this innate feeling, you articulated it, there is this innate feeling of, I'm not sure what I am. Yes. It's like standing on a sheet of water.
Like it's all good things have come from outside.
Not just Indians, please understand, any society. See, a society can do what is called passive inheritance or active inheritance. Passive inheritance, I think I should narrate a quick story so that we understand. It's a popular story. Yeah. There's a father who knew all these practices. He did his father's Pitrukarya every year, and he used to have a cat. Shraddha Karya is, the first samagri is Shraddha, then the other things. That's how our culture says. We have to be very grateful to our parents and so on. So he felt this cat will keep disturbing him. Shraddha is the most important samagri. So he said, let me put a, basket and let it not disturb. And he went on doing it. He never taught anything to his son. The sons acquired it in a passive way. Father never told what is he doing, why is he doing, what is he doing and all that. One day the father passed away. It is son's turn now. So Shraddha Karya has to be done. So they had everything except a cat and a basket. So they hired a cat and a basket, because they thought part of Shraddha is you should have a cat and then cover it with a basket. This is what we are doing today.
Yes.
Without knowing what it is, when you do it in a very ritualistic way, the meaning will be gone. So we will be unsure of ourselves. We will not have that confidence. Moment all this comes back, I think psychologically will be better. And the interesting thing I find is the current generation of youngsters like you, I think there is this desire to know, whereas in our generation, somehow it wasn't there for whatever reasons. That's a good news. While what you say is also there, I also see the other side, that if you can objectively bring, instead of glorification, all that, this is the kind of things that happened, and this is the progress it has gone through, and this is where it was till 1800. I'm sure people, it will be an eye-opener. I think people become more confident and more sure of themselves, and that will only make a very positive psychology on them.
I know this will be the second step, but first step is knowing it. Second is, how do we, this is past knowledge is good and well, but how do we take it further? How do we make our contribution? What should be our contribution to it? How do we do that?
So I will take my own example. I knew no Sanskrit, believe me. I studied in Tamil Nadu and I studied Tamil medium and all that. Somebody told me when I was in my 11th and 12th, they said, hey, you take Sanskrit here, zyada mark mil jayega. That's all was my, exposure to Sanskrit, right? Then I came across this Sanskrit Bharati. At that time it was called Nidhistaya Vristana. I understood, maybe there was a desire. Many of us have those kinds of desires at the back of our mind, is what I am saying.
Especially the Indian psyche.
Somewhere it was
somewhere
there.
It's hidden so when thousands of years.
When I learned Sanskrit in 10 days, and then I was doing PhD by then. And I invested a lifetime of Sanskrit, which is in a way culminated even in this book, I should say. Yeah. So what I am trying to tell you is, so you are asking what will happen to step 2. Please understand, each one of us are not cookie-cutter engineers. That's why you are not an engineer. You are now doing something more creative than doing an engineering.
I don't know about that.
No, I am telling you, my daughter's wedding I did 6 months back. I met youngsters who are doing fantastic photography. They were saying, sir, we are all engineers, we are working Infosys, but we are doing it. So what I am saying is, when you know this, the passion in us will come out. You will start reading metallurgy, and you 5-10 years down the line, who knows, you will actually take wood steel 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
And somebody else will get excited by the binary mathematics, he will do something. It will enable that. So how it will happen, I am not worried. I'm not worried because I know each individual has his or her own passion, and this will fuel that passion, and that is how we will take it up. So I don't need to worry about the need of an institution. Some institutions can facilitate that process, so the ecosystem will grow.
Yeah, the second order, third order
Will
effects
happen.
will come. But the main important thing is to lay the foundation
Absolutely, it will happen. I will tell you another thing. When I was in schools, I think one of the boring subject for me was history. But when I grew up, I understood the value of history. I read a lot of history in my own ways. So therefore, you have to create enabling provisions. Each one of us have our own passion. We will pick that thread of IKS and take it as far as we want. And a country of 1.3 billion will not have 1 in 1,000 need to do it. I am not even asking everyone to do it. If 1 in 1,000
given our population.
we will take it to unimaginable proportions, and I am sure it will happen.
You talked about history. This is the problem with everyone, including me. But right now we are reading all the history books, right? We are so much interested in it. But why what we can learn from IKS? Why history teaching, history syllabus is so boring in schools, but we are so much interested in knowing it, because that is, without history you cannot go further. So where is the problem in history teaching?
Where
in
the
India?
problem is the history is not presented. The history is not presented in history books. A certain view of probably a set of people who thought this is how the history has to be presented is being presented. So I think inherently it is not gelling with us. It is not connecting to us inherently. For example, if you read history, somebody was making this observation, I thought it was a sensible observation. He said the history is made out in such a way, if you take, let's say, 1200 AD to 1900 AD, the history an Indian reads is to give you an impression that we will be overpowered by somebody, we will be conquered, and we will have to just
Wait for the invasions to happen.
go through the motion of what is happened. That was not the history. That was one aspect which seemed to have happened. But so many other things happened when they were not presented, so it doesn't seem to connect with us. That's why I think we have just gone through the motion of the process. So if you present a history in its multi-dimensional, for example, how despite all these sort of invasions, the best mathematics happened between 1100 and 1400. With all these invasions happening on one side, people were just coming out with fantastic ideas. Narayana Pandita in 1495 has done, pan-diagonal magic square algorithms and so on. And for a 4x4 magic square, he says there are only this many number of some 300, I don't remember the 83, or I have to check actually. Only this many magic squares are possible. And you need to wait till 1923 or 24 for some Westerners to actually prove that result. So while our history never said any of these, it only said Mughals came and then took over. Then Khilji came and did something. That's fine, but nothing else happened after that.
You think we are talking too much about the rulers rather than the people?
Than the culture and the multidimensional, interesting, innovative things, 1,000 flowers that are constantly blossoming in this country is not part of history. Why should you write it? I do not know.
That's very interesting. The 11th to 14th century, 15th century, the base of it must have been laid earlier.
I would say this is actually a continuous culture. It's not even, we don't even know the base.
But there must be a reason for the, going up and down.
And
like
that happens now. If in the independent India, if you look at, if the people the ruling class decided this is what we must emphasize in the society, everything goes that way. So that in the same way, when this Arabic or this Mughal rulers and all these people came, and the East India Company and they all put their agenda onto the table, and to that the society also will respond, because you'll be forced.
Yes.
So one of the things I write in my book in chapter 1, I am saying, and in chapter 11 also I said that, is I asked this question. So much of knowledge is there, why none of that is not there today? And my argument is this. For example, in 19th century, Britishers imposed a ban on mining. So your metalworking has to come to a grinding halt. And they imposed a tax when you process on a metal. So it is a matter of some 30-40 years that that practice has to go. the ruling class decides what has to happen, what not to happen, and many ordinary people, they have to make a living here at the end of the day. So they will go with the wind of the ruling class. So that's how we lost.
And given that employment used to be hereditary, once you stop that, there are no universities to teach. You learn from your home.
This was the other point. We had such a nice Varnashrama Dharma. Varna is messed up today. It's a beautiful mechanism by which class of trade had a lot of know-how, and the Shishya is mostly the family members and the son and so on. It was handing down, going through the generations, very rich information and so on. When you put an abrupt end to it and say, all of you come put a socks and a shoe and a carry bag and then come and start reading English, and otherwise you will not get job, you will not make a living, I'll have to do it. And I do it, and then it comes to a grinding halt. We didn't even record it properly, put it, because it was a nice oral tradition in which it was moving.
So this is very interesting. The oral tradition, that is the USP of Indian culture somehow. We never wrote down actually all these things. We just, passed down from one generation to another. So if we have to, maybe I don't know, I'm not an expert, but maybe you can tell whether the, oral tradition is the carrier of Indian knowledge system.
Oral tradition has been and will be a significant carrier of the Indian knowledge systems. But if you look at our own thing also, I think slowly palm scripts, people also understood that as civilization started progressing, they also tried to document and put things. That's why Aryabhatiya could write so much, and there is so much of written work in mathematics and all that. So both are now riding parallelly. That's why we use two words. One is called Kala, another is called Vidya. When you say Vidya, somewhere the understanding is all documented, either in a palm script, doesn't matter, in a lipi, in a literary kind of a tradition and so on. When you say Kala, it is practices which are handed down. So I think somewhere we started managing both. Some are available as Kala, and Chatushrashti Kala, we say 64 Kalas and so on.
Yeah.
And the oral tradition is also going, but I think more and more we are also sort of putting it into a formal thing. I think now going forward, there is an urgent need that very quickly, to the extent possible, we must be able to be understudy with some great oral tradition people, and then try to extract them in the best possible ways and document it. All that has to happen, I think.
And from the institutional point of view, what can the institutions do, universities do, to bring IKS into active research?
Yeah, so what can happen is, let us say we started introducing such courses, which is what we are attempting now. Though that would mean that, as I told you, there are some individuals who will take it up. You can't stop them. They get really excited and take it up. So now the institution must say, do I have an enabling mechanism for such people to carry on with their work? So we can't stop with this. So parallelly, we need to say, how do we engage in the research, which today's research is all borrowed, and taking this Western research, which we have taken into one delta at a time and publish a paper and those kinds of things. We are all eking our living that way. But can we also, work with there are these Sanskrit institutions, there are these traditional knowledge people and pandits who have some domain knowledge and so on. So therefore, can we create mechanisms by which some research programs, some studies, some joint projects on which you study certain aspects and start building some research. So those kinds of institutional mechanisms must flourish. I think AICTE has an IKS division in which they are actually also fueling that kind of initiatives now. Therefore, I think it should get into some good research agenda. It can be explorative. We don't have to get results tomorrow morning and even after 5 years. But I think we need to get there and then walk that path. And there is a lot of learning that happens through that. The institutional mechanisms have to follow that path. And I'm already seeing some amount of effort which has already started.
Is it?
Yes. A little bit of, as I told you, the IKS division of AICTE is quite, I think Professor Ganti Murthy, you must really have a conversation with him to understand.
Sure, sir.
Please have a chat with him. There is a long drawn agenda on which they are working.
So you talked about 4 or 5 years. What would the success of it look like?
Well, the success of it, if you ask me, 4 5 years is too early for really counting the successes. Although some early successes are important for us to keep going. Otherwise, we
Yes.
don't feel that charged up and so on. I would think in the 5 years, if, as I told you, if 20 more books come on different facets of Indian knowledge systems, which requires a certain kind of a research. I took 1 year leave and read, I don't know, maybe some 20,000 pages. I would have sat down and read in my own ways. Corona also helped me not to go out of my house in some ways. So I think the first thing would be if we can proliferate good quality courses in higher educational systems on metallurgy, on painting and architecture and cyclic geometry, and that will be the first stage of the research, because then that takes such students to the next level.
Then it depends on them how far they take it.
Then offer PhD programs where there are mechanisms in which such areas can be. As more literature grows, there is more scope for taking serious research.
We have to be just flexible and people will take it forward. True. In this, you talked about the Indian knowledge, the way of life, the good way of life, right? We focus on all science is good. We try to earn from it. The knowledge system is only people see, at least the young people, because they don't know better. They are focusing on how to get employment, how to get a job from this. And that seems to be the whole focus of it. Now, when it comes to IKS, you say that there is certain more things to learn from it, the good life, the once we search on YouTube and how to manage our time better, how to be a good person in life and all that, then we move towards spirituality. So after college and then you move into family, and then that is the time to we start searching for answers why we are here. So what do you think that people in my generation that can learn from our past knowledge that is extremely important to lead a good life?
Yes, very important. And I must tell you, I must quote from Vishnu Purana first as to our understanding of what education ought to be. It says, Ya vidya sa vimuktaye. That is the quote there. That knowledge which liberates you. So I actually, I was the founder, Vice-chancellor of Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth. I used to say that we don't need liberal arts, we need liberating science. I used to say like that. That's what the Vishnu Purana quote is saying. Ya vidya sa vimuktaye. आजकल क्या हो रहा है, या विद्या सा नियुक्तये. Can I get a job?
Yes.
नियुक्ति,
Yes.
not vimukti.
Yes.
नियुक्ति तो थोड़ा so education for livelihood is what is happening now. But a true education must balance livelihood and living. We need education for living and education for livelihood. So that education for living comes from IKS. Sri Shankaracharya wrote a beautiful commentary for Bhagavad Gita. The popularity of Bhagavad Gita today is because of Shankaracharya. Then people took it and so many things happened. He wrote a 20-line preamble. Why am I writing a commentary for Gita? There he says, let me quote that. Do vidokto vedokto dharmaha pravritti lakshano nivritti lakshanascha jagataha stiti karanam praninam sakshat abhyudaya nishreyasa hetuhu. It's a nice statement he makes. He says in Veda there are two types of dharma, pravritti dharma and nivritti dharma. Pravritti dharma is all about work. Make a livelihood. Indians believed we should have comfortable living. Materialism was not shunned away by Indians. Somehow this kind of thing is the Indian knowledge. It means you throw up everything and go to the forest. How can somebody who threw everything and go to the forest create so much knowledge? That's not true. So pravritti dharma, but then it also said nivritti dharma. At the end of the day, you should come and then have a very peaceful sleep. You should feel very... See, today what happens is 8 hours of work becomes 12 hours of work and you come dissatisfied. Not that you came satisfied. Dissatisfied not in a negative sense. I'm saying there is a feeling of emptiness. So, that is where IKS comes. So, a generation like you people, whether I say it or not, I can tell you and you will do it, and I have seen people doing it. They will, by the time you become the age of 30, you actually land on the ground. Because, marriage to ho gaya, to job to ho gaya, you understood the from flying, and then we are not now on. That's when they actually ask. I think that's when seriously people get into IKS. See, I run a weekly satsang called Practical Vedanta Samvada.
Okay.
For the last 15 years, I'm doing. There's a YouTube channel also on that. All my students are 20. A good number of students are in the age of 30 to 45. That's when we understand livelihood part is there. Let us understand also living. That's where IKS will play a very important role. And we can go back to our literature. Our literature is full of that. It talks about the world inside. Western literature talks about the world outside. You need both.
So in this inside, what we can learn from Bhagavad Gita? You talked about Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And so what are the lessons for our generation, especially when we are working?
Yes.
How to enjoy that?
Yes.
Because sometimes most of the people are not in the jobs that they really enjoy doing. I mean, so that is the reality. But how they can still be happy? So that is the key question.
That is the question discussed in great detail in Bhagavad Gita. So I will just say Karma Yoga. In fact, Sri Krishna's entire discussion is exactly answering this question. How can I find joy in work? Today, work is so drudgery. I have to get into what is called weekend getaway. This is what Western society has taught me. I need a weekend getaway. Why? Because work is boring. Work is drudgery.
So the whole struggle is about getting away.
So we can get away. Even that is become a problem. Getting away has become a bigger problem because of traffic and all that on the weekend. That's a different story. So Bhagavad Gita's Karma Yoga, I'll put it in simple English, my understanding. So many things Krishna talks in Gita only about this issue. The way I have understood Karma Yoga is every one of us have to be part of the society, doing some work or other, depending upon what are your skills and what organization you find yourself to be in and so on and so forth. Each one of us have to engage in work. And when we engage in work, we face multiple situations in work. And Karma Yoga says, I am in this situation. I am supposed to respond to this situation. I will respond to this situation. I will put my best foot forward. And Bhagavad Gita teaches a beautiful concept called detached attachment.
There is attachment also.
Attachment is putting your best foot forward. I think when you do your work, you have to put your 100%, not 99.9%. Put the best foot forward. And where is the detachment comes? When results come, take your hands off. Meaning, though sometimes things don't come the way we want it. It can happen. There are today youngsters are saying, I have put so much effort, results must come. They thumb the desk and say, I want the results. That means they have not understood the reality of life.
We are not lucky.
So many things happen here. So many things happen. So that whole methodology is so beautifully taught in Gita. And if you understand this detached attachment way of life, work becomes enjoyable.
But then won't we have to make a lot of effort to be detached? Or it has to come naturally?
No, you have to think through it. I give a favorite example.
Yeah.
I say I cross my IIM Bangalore main gate, goes to the other side of the road, there is a bus stop. I go there and catch the bus and go to a place. I tell my students there are 20 possibilities where you will not even catch the bus. Even that result is not in your hands. I give them 20 possibilities in such a simple act of life where I cross the road and go to the other side and catch a bus and then reach this destination. My results are not guaranteed. Sometimes I cross, the bus driver will not stop the bus. I don't know why. He will not stop. I see it in DTC quite often. I have seen it when I was in 91. That's my experience. I was a professor in IIT Delhi, this area only.
Yeah.
So even in a small thing that you want to take a bus or an auto and reach there is not in your hand, you have to understand this reality of life. That wisdom, that grey matter if you develops, then you will not worry about results, but you will not take your effort, you will not take your hands off. You will find a new meaning to work. You will actually work. There is a joy of work you will find. And quite often you will get results, much better results. But sometimes it will go off the way, but nothing will happen to you.
I think we remain frustrated, or we become frustrated throughout the day. So many situations arise, particularly because we don't understand this
part
particular.
of it. If you understand it, we have developed that wisdom in our
So the next question is how to develop that
You
wisdom.
think about, you have to manana. See, matters of mind.
Yeah.
See, mind cannot be, it's not, I make this famous story. One Raja became bald head. So he said, is there a way it can be sorted out? One young boy came and I have a medicine for you. Give me some $1 trillion or something, I give you a medicine. Doctor King said, okay. He gave a bottle of oil. He said, you apply this oil for 45 days, everything will be sorted out. Raja said, oh, is it? As the boy was saying, he said something. But one thing, don't think of a monkey when you apply this oil. So the mind will every day think only of the monkey. So you have to coach your mind.
Yeah.
You have to repeat it. Mind, we have to coach. That's called manana in our, scheme. You do Shravana and then you do manana. You contemplate on the meaning of it. The more you contemplate, the mind will come around. And acceptance. Another example people give, I've been hearing some lectures. So one person told, person ties a knot to the other lady and there is no orientation program. The mind has accepted her as wife and she has accepted him as husband. You didn't go through any, that's all. It has happened. It's all about the mind. The mind has accepted. It's acceptance. So you have to cultivate that need for acceptance with us.
You have to actively pursue it.
Yes.
And from management perspective, because you are professor at IIMB, what management lessons or leadership lessons we can learn from, say, Bhagavad Gita?
Well, there are so many. I will just say just one of them, which is the most important thing, which he has said several times, and that is called Titiksha. It's a nice shloka, says, Matra Sparshast Kaunteya, Sitoshna Sukha Dukkadaha, Agamapaino Anityaha Tam Titiksha Swabharata. He says, as long as you dabble in this world, with all your Pancha Jnanendriyas fully active, the sparsh of that, the matras, tanmatra sparsh, will blow hot and cold. Sukha dukkha, sita ushna, sita ushna sukha dukkataha. The world will always blow hot and cold. The life is a roller coaster life. This is the biggest lesson for a leader. If you know that, how do you develop mental equanimity or equipoise? Krishna says you will become a top-notch leader. Which means you should have the grace to, just now we talked about results. You should have the grace to accept defeat. You should have the grace to accept success also. People have neither.
Equanimity is important.
Very, very important. That's the most important lesson that you find for a leader to be.
Do you think meditation plays a major role in achieving that towards?
Absolutely. Meditation is all about an opportunity to be yourself. Mental equanimity comes when you know yourself, you are with yourself. I keep telling my students, I run this Bhagavad Gita course actually.
Where is this?
In IIM Bangalore. It's an elective. It's a 3-credit elective.
Can we do it online? No.
We're still not available because it's a regular 3-credit elective. So I keep telling that imagine you built a 5-bedroom house.
Yeah.
Imagine you built a 5-bedroom house and you spent all your lifetime standing on the portico looking outside. You never came inside the house. That's what we are all doing. We use the Pancha Indriyas and then we only let ourselves out. We never find inside. So meditation helps us to turn ourselves inward. The moment you turn yourself inward, there is a lot of, sort of these issues will all be, there are a lot of pending files which have to be signed. Lying, the CEO is standing out in the portico and then looking at what is happening outside. That's what we are all doing. So meditation helps us to open the door and come into the living room.
The problem is we talk about so much like how to manage this. We are not able to manage the time itself, 24 hours.
No, I will tell you, sorry to say this, people who say, I didn't mean you, in a general sense I'm saying.
No, that may be applicable to me also. That's why I asked this question.
My little experience has been, people who have done a lot of work never have said we didn't find time. And people who say we don't have time are Dirgha Sutris, if I have to use a word. There is one shloka in Ashtavakra Gita. It says, Pravrittirapi dhirasya nivritti palabhagini nivrittirapi mudasya pravrittihi upajayate. For a muda, he does nothing but he feels as though he has done so many things and he feels very tired. Whereas for a dhira, he is 24/7 up and working. He says, I am not tired. He is Nivritti Palabhagini. His Pala, his effect is one of Nivritti, but he is Pravritti. So, what I'm saying, I don't buy this argument. Simply, I think we need to ask ourselves. When you say we don't have time, that means my general understanding is we seem to have a certain tendency of procrastination. Such people only don't find time.
And that leads to
So then
interference
frustration,
into other areas also. You don't work fast at work during work hours.
And at
then
times you feel upset, nothing has happened, then it fuels this. It's a vicious circle on which we are in.
On the meditation, I just wanted you to know that when we try to meditate, the problem is you can't. It's very difficult initially. I mean, I don't know about the next stage, but when we try, it's like nothing is there, and then we get distracted. Then we look into okay, what's happening on phone and all that.
Correct.
So how would you suggest someone to go about meditating?
Yeah, two quick things. The person who comes to a Grand Slam would have put 1 million hours of work before even he came to the first circuit of tennis and winning it. Or for that matter, Tendulkar, I don't know how many thousand hours he would have put and so on. So first of all, right, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagina cha grihhyate is what Krishna says. This question was asked by Arjuna, none other than Arjuna. He said, Chanchalam hi mahabaho, mano durnigraham chalam. That's what he said. He said, I agree with you. So first you need abhyasa. So meditation is not going to happen in 6 months. And if you think like that, we are cheating ourselves. So, but there are issues. So in fact, my students ask me, particularly people who are working in software companies who are all my students, they ask this. So I ask them, do you have half an hour more in your life if you are serious? Half an hour more? For example, if you are getting up at 6 o'clock, can you get up at 5:30? Yes, sir, that's not difficult. Then you do one thing. I will not tell you how to do meditation and all that. Don't worry about all that now. For next 6 months, if you get up at 5 o'clock, please get up at 4:30. If you get up at 6 o'clock, get up at 5:30. If you get up at 7 o'clock, get up at 6:30. Yes, sir. So now you have 30 minutes extra from your normal things. Yes. For 30 minutes, you just go and sit in one place and just close your eyes. Don't do meditation. I don't want to use word meditation and all that. Sit for 30 minutes, just close your eyes. And then you meet me after that. Where do I sit? Wherever you want. You want to go and sit in a puja room, it's okay. You want to sit in your bedroom in one corner, I'm not bothered about all that. Sit and close your eyes for 30 minutes. Half of them never came back. The remaining half of them came back, but they never came back to ask me what to do. They said, sir, we understood what to do now. They said that first 1 month was a real nightmare. The eyes were sort of blinking, violent things were happening. But beautifully in 4 or 5 months, it started slow. So we have to slow down. Meditation don't get in now. You have a starter before you go for a main course. So, I mean, that way I would say, I think we should learn to close our eyes and sit for some time. If we get that practice, that will bootstrap your meditation practice. Then now I know where to go, and maybe I look at some help here and there. It's so much available, some Sudarshan, this, that, so many things are there, but I know my path. So that would be my very realistic. If I want to go to Mount Everest, I don't bother about all that. I bother about the first base camp. I will not waste my time about where is the height, how much and all. Then I'll sweat and go back. I will only say from here I have to walk, how many steps I should take here, and where is the base camp, how much time will it reach for the base camp. That's all I will worry. So every great effort requires only that kind of thing. Meditation is a great effort. 6 months, just sit and close. Let us close our eyes for 30 minutes. It will teach us what to do. Meditation will beautifully come after that.
I think you have to leave. So last question, because really I want to talk for 1 more hour at least, but I think we have paucity of time. So last question, in the IKS, Indian Knowledge System, what do you see the challenges as?
The biggest challenge I see is our ability to teach. Because there is one problem I see with IKS, with Indians. See, I am not a professor of anesthesia. I am not a professor of polymer science. I am not even a professor of metallurgy, so I won't talk anything about that. I will talk a little bit about management. I have after all done it. My occupational hazard for 30 years, I will do it.
Yeah.
This is what we all will do. If your expertise is in metallurgy, you will only talk about metallurgy. But in this country, we will go to the rooftop and say Bhagavad Gita is a useless, it's not required. They're all 3000 years old and not required. Then I asked them, gentlemen, have you read Bhagavad Gita? Do you know Sanskrit? Have you read it in original? No. How do you make this statement? So you have a license to make this statement? You don't have a license to talk about anesthesia.
We have people who talk on Ukraine war on one day and then on domestic politics and then on something else the other day.
So IKS people think is simply you can, we know it, after all it's part of our culture. I think that mindset may come in the way. And my only request is, I think we should genuinely invest out of pure devotion for the country, for this society. If we invest a little bit, then all our cultural connections, it will only be advantageous for us to read it than an American or a Japanese. We will have that starting point advantage. But that doesn't end there. It doesn't mean that because I am already an Indian, I can simply go on. So I think the challenge is we need good way to communicate. I find there are a lot of seminars on Gita and all that in which they actually do a
good job.
Disservice. Because not much they know and they come talk. But there are many others which is also happening. So
can you recommend some to people who are good?
I can. We will, some I will,
Sure.
We'll take it offline and think through and so on. I think we need to build that kind of a rigor when it comes to IKS matters. That is one challenge I see. If that happens, then the ecosystem will flourish very fast.
The problem with education system is pedagogy itself. So can we learn something there also?
Yeah, of course. Taitra Upanishad, there is a lot we can learn from that. Taitra Upanishad, father, there is a Varuni Bhargavi Vidya. He says, Adihi Bhagavo Brahmheti. I want to know what is Brahman. He says, Tapasa Brahma Vijijñāsasva Tapo Brahmheti. Father gives an answer. See, Satapo Tapyata. There are five times this sun comes. He gives the same answer. Now there are some nice methodologies by which we make people teach. In fact, in my weekly satsanga, I tell my students, don't ask questions. It looks very strange in today's thing. Yeah. And they ask me why. And when I taught Taitra Upanishad, they understood what it was. I said, don't let your questions out. If you let your questions out, it is out of you. You live with the doubt. What will happen? Sometime the question will disappear. The question, you will find an answer. Sometimes the question will morph into another question. All these are progress. Today we are told, you have a question, you have to throw the question at the teacher.
Clear the doubt.
What clear the doubt? It will not get here for you. You have to live with the question and pariprashnena. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena seveya. Upatekshanti te jnanam jnanina tattvadarshina. That pariprashna is very important. So we should live with doubts. In a positive sense, I am saying. It should make you uncomfortable. Then you will go after it. I mean, you will still get to know and all that. But you own the doubt and keep the doubt with you. That's what our ancestors, that's one methodology of teaching. Right, they will not give you an answer, but they will tell you things. You say, go and find out.
Right now we have Google. We just search everything.
So nothing stays. It is all in Google actually.
That's true. I wish we could talk for another hour, but hopefully when you come next time, we'll be able to spare more time. Just a request to you.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to talk. I am very happy to see a lot of youngsters like you who have taken this very seriously.
It's an honor to for you to come here, and it's really a pleasure talking to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And I hope you keep coming.
Thank you. I wish you the very best in all your endeavors.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Namaste.